Hey, this is Josh Todd from Buckcherry, and you're listening to Appetite for Distortion with Brando.
Yeah!
Josh Todd from Buckcherry, how are you?
I am doing well. I am really honored for you to take time to speak with me today.
My pleasure, man.
Did I catch you eating mid-apple or something?
No, just finishing up my lunch. I'm just chewing my last bite.
Okay, all good. I was just scarfing down a lemon loaf from Starbucks, so I guess we're on the same page.
Oh, cool.
I'm excited because you're closing out the year in my neck of the woods, really, because I'm based here in New York City, and you're going to some really awesome venues. One being in my home base of Long Island, the Paramount, which is a beautiful club, and Starland Ballroom.
Club.
Yeah, and Starland Ballroom in Jersey. So, as somebody who's toured so much, what do you prefer, I guess, like where to play, or does it matter? That being like a stadium, like a big festival, or an intimate, like what's your preferred show to put on, I guess I'm asking.
I get that question a lot, and it's like we've been on every size stage you can think of, and it's really the same for us, I mean, I'm super passionate about performing, and so I have the same mentality. Sometimes, it's a little more intense when you have a smaller room because it's more intimate and you feel like you have to really be at your very, very best. Not like you always, aren't striving for that every time you walk on stage. But, I do the same things. I get into a mental state before I walk on stage. I take about an hour, call it my hour of power. And, I get focused, I get grateful. And I basically, what I like to say, I turn myself into an instrument, and that's what you got to do with vocals. And it's really good to get in a ritual of that kind of stuff because, you're not always at the best physical condition when you're on the road. You could be going through all kinds of different stuff. So that being said, I really love those two venues that you mentioned. I had a lot of shows at the Starland and at the Paramount, and we sold the most amount of records in Minneapolis and New York in the United States. So it means a lot to go back to those places and still have like these great turnouts.
After all these years, I guess what keeps you driven most of all? Is it the actual performance and using yourself as an instrument, as you say, or is it the look of potentially, over the horizon, seeing new music on the way? Is it just kind of embracing your entire history? Is there a main motivation for you? Because you guys, you've been doing it since the mid-'90s.
Yeah, it's a 20-year mark for us.
Amazing.
You know what? At the end of the day, it's really about passion, and thank God I've always really loved what I do, and I'm also very involved in it. I write all the lyrics and melodies for every song you've heard in our career, and that means a lot to me because it makes it very personal. And so that way, when I go represent it, live, I feel really emotionally attached to the music, and I couldn't imagine it any other way. I know other people, do it all different kinds of ways, but that's the way I do it, and it works for me.
Before I guess I lose it in the conversation, when you call it your hour of power, unless it's a secret, you can just say that it's my hour. I can't tell anybody what I do, my regimen. But what do you do? Are you doing do re mi? Are you in a TP
no,
with
I can tell you
peyote?
exactly
What do you do?
I do. Yeah, nothing's a secret. I like to talk about the whole process because I'm passionate about it, and every singer's got a different way to go. But of course I do scales, vocal scales. That gets my voice ready to go. I do that every day, and that's about 35 minutes. And then the rest of the time, I just listen to music that inspires me. Mostly like I go in I have different kind of phases I go through, but lately I've been in like an old funk phase where I'll be listening to like James Brown and some of the old disco songs, Donna Summer and stuff like that. And I just dance and get my body loose and get with my band and kind of interact with my band. We just have a nice time. We say a prayer, and the prayer is always mandatory. we thank God for like the opportunity and what we get to do and the longevity that we've had and the people that have paid their money to come see us tonight. And that all of that is working up to stepping on that stage. And so by the time we get to the stage, we're just fired up that we get another opportunity.
How has the crowd reception been to the new record? Because Warpaint came out earlier this year, and it's a phenomenal record. Really shows,
Thank you.
The hard rock Buckcherry, and then the ballads that I really enjoyed. It's the balance of what I like in a rock band. So how has the reception been from Buckcherry and just rock fans alike?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because on all those older rock records, there was so much balance, and I don't see that a lot in like the newer school rock bands. Maybe there is, and I'm just not catching it all. But we like to have that dynamics, and like songs where you're just basically capturing an emotion, in 3 or 4 minutes. So I have all different kinds of human emotions that I want to touch on, and that makes a really nice set of music. And what you were saying about Warpaint, I'm very happy because we worked really hard on that record. It was very reminiscent of the same kind of process we went through before we dropped 15. It had been 3 years since our last record. We had some lineup changes. We were going through a lot professionally and personally, and it always makes for great songwriting. And Stevie and I, we were really thorough. We wrote over 30 songs for what you hear on Warpaint. So, it really, I feel like song to song and pound for pound, it's up there with 15 as one of our best.
Did you, and I'll credit this to a listener, if I can only find it on Facebook, but did you know that 15 was going to be as groundbreaking as it was when it came out?
Had no clue. Hanging on by the seat of our pants. We were all working day jobs before that. We were all like broke. We didn't have any, so we were just doing what we were passionate about. We were just like, let's make the best record we can make. We had no idea it was going to do what it did. We didn't see Crazy Bitch coming, none of it, and as a matter of fact, that whole rollout was so crazy because no one would sign that record in the United States. We had the whole record done and no one would sign it. We did that whole record in 15 days. That's why we called it 15, because we got a small bit of money from Japan. Japan gave us a record deal. We did the record and we still couldn't get it signed. So our manager at the time, Alan Kovacs, started 11-7 Records he goes, I'll put it out. And he started an independent label. And we had we distributed it through Atlantic, and then they had some clause in there where they could sign it if they wanted to at any time, and so upstreaming clause. So, anyways, we dropped it, and as soon as we were about to drop it, we were almost going with the song "Next to You" as the first single.
Oh, I love that
this
song.
This was when MySpace was happening,
Sure.
and like. Crazy Bitch was getting all these fucking views and listens. I can't remember if it was a view or a listen at that point, but it was just
might have been like a play. I think that's what's
people were playing that song. It was over 1 million, right? And we were like, oh my God, what is going on with this song? And then all of a sudden, radio DJs started editing a clean version of the song and put it on the radio. We didn't even ask, and so we're like, oh my God, this song's taken off on its own, and we jumped on Crazy Bitch. We stopped everything that had to do with Next to You, and we went to Crazy Bitch, and it just changed our career, changed the scope of our career. So thank God for that.
That's fascinating because it wasn't like you did this song just to be on the radio, and it just had its organic, it just took off organically, and I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah,
almost didn't even make the record. It had been sitting around for a while, and it's like, we just thought it'd be like a good, a good crowd tune. Like our core fans would really like it. It'd be fun to play live. We didn't think much of it because of the lyrical content.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And before I lose, I want to credit because I got a lot of listener questions that people are excited to hear from you today. This is from on Twitter, WT Famicon. Not everyone has an easy handle to say. Asked about the 15 record, but you said something pretty interesting. On the topic of, I guess, Crazy Bitch and talking about how a lot of rock radio today. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It sounds the same to me. I think you're out there more than I am. So I remember when Crazy Bitch, I was working at Pixie 103 in Cape Cod when that broke, and that was, that whole album was the album of the year for me, and then on that station, and of course with all the editing, with all that crazy stuff, I'm like, I can actually play this song on the radio, like that's amazing. So something on the way here that I was driving, listening to, Warpaint. It's like I had my hour of power driving here, listening to Warpaint.
Good.
So I was listening to it and hearing your voice, of course, and then as soon as you picked up the phone, it's the same thing. You have a voice that it's Josh Todd. Like there's no if and or buts around it. So it's you singing, and I think that's what separates Buckcherry and will continue to separate is your voice. So do you think like maybe there's a lack of, maybe not bands, but vocalists out there? It could be said of a lot of genres. I feel like all country music sounds the same. A lot of hip hop sounds the same. Where are the Josh Todds of other genres where it's so distinct, who it is?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I didn't set out to be like, I'm going to be different than everybody else. I just think it's kind of just like this. I guess I'm kind of a mutt, because I just crammed in all this different types of music, and my foundation was really aggressive, punk rock records, but I would sneak into my sister's room and listen to Stevie Wonder and Prince and Billy Idol and Yaz and all those records and the whole Prince era records, The Time and Apollonia 6. I loved all that stuff. And then my mother would play records around the house, Rod Stewart, the Eagles, Willie Nelson, Kenny Rogers. And so I'd listen to all that. I was just I just was absorbing everything, and it kind of created this style of what I am. And I think the reason why I kind of stand out, when you hear me, is because I was so underdeveloped. I wasn't a vocalist. I had a knack at writing. I was always doing creative writing before I got into bands. So I would write poetry and do all kinds of stuff. And then when I started getting into bands, I had a knack for lyrics and melodies. And so that's where my expertise was at the time. Well, not expertise, but that's where my strong point was. And then I had to develop my voice later. And I think that's what made it kind of its own thing, but, it's worked against us and it's worked for us at, a lot of times. And like you said, the charm of it is when you hear Buckcherry, it's us, and that's the good part.
And it's not repetitive, because what I said before, you have different tempos of songs and you have different octaves and ranges in your voice. So it's not like it's, well, yes, I love the Ramones, but there's really not too much variety in there. But with Buckcherry, you can get the whole palette of rock. I was listening to, there's even some a hint of country in some of the slower tunes that I hear.
Yes.
I'm curious because this is the first record that you've had Kevin on lead guitar. So how has that been, and what was the recruiting process like when you needed to get a new guitarist for the album?
We were looking for some guys, and we were looking at other guys, and Kevin I have known since I was 20. When I first got to LA, he was when I first got to LA, I was 19, and that's when I met Stevie. We were working together at a used clothing store, and when we became roommates, and we were never in bands together because he was always doing his thing and I was doing my thing, and we were just really good friends, and we got in a lot of nonsense together, and eventually we got sober and all that stuff, and then he's been in the band since 15, Stevie, and so when this all came up, Stevie had always been in touch with Kevin. I was always friendly with Kevin, and Kevin and I know each other, but he and Stevie were really good friends, So all this was going on, and out of the blue, I get this call from Stevie, and he goes, "Hey, you know what? I got something to throw at you." And I go, "Okay, what?" He goes, "What about Kevin being in the band?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, Kevin." And so the reason I say that is because we have a lot of respect for Kevin. He's like he's a really great, not only is he a great guitar player, but he's a great singer, you know, and he produces. He's just a really well-rounded musician. And we used to go see his band in Hollywood when we were kids called Soul. And they were huge, you know, and we were kind of like, we looked up to this guy. We loved his voice, you know, and so to come full circle, and I said to Stevie, I said, is he into it? Because you know, as long as he understands like the dynamic and he's cool with it, because I would feel weird if, you know, he wasn't just, you know, totally into it, you know, and because he's such a great frontman on his own. And he goes, no, he's like totally into it and a team player. And I was like, well, then it's a no-brainer. That's our guy. And as soon as he got in, you know, we didn't have to audition him or anything because we know his whole, you know, catalog of music. He's been in a lot of bands that have had record deals, you know. So when he came into the fold, it was just like the perfect fit. And it with him and Francis, our drummer, in the fold. And you know what? And Kelly as well. Kelly, we knew way back in the day too, you know, and he's been in the band like I think 8 years now. But like it's the best lineup and the best musicians that have ever been in Buckcherry. And so it's just it's so much fun. Sorry for my language.
No, it's okay. I'm talking the Buckcherry, so it's fine. Pre-recorded podcasting, the beauty of it. But again, I don't.
All right.
Yeah, no. Feel free to be yourself, but I appreciate your politeness. Anyway, so with this being such a strong lineup, how does that make you feel, I guess, going forward? Does that make you more eager to, I don't know, maybe create new stuff as opposed to maybe revisit some of the old stuff? Because you know how bands, like you celebrate a 20th anniversary, they might do remastering. So is there anything in going on, swimming in your head, how to celebrate 20 years as a band as it approaches?
You know, right before I got on this call, I just finished singing an acoustic version of Sorry. We just re-recorded Sorry. You know, I'm exhausted. I was standing on my feet for about 2 hours, just, you know, belting it. That song is very tricky. You know, it's my whole range and the timing, and you know, there's just it's a tricky song. And I was kind of like, Stevie threw me a curveball. I didn't know he was done with it, you know, and I thought I was doing something else today. And then he's like, "Hey man, I got Sorry done. Like, you want to do that?" And I go, "Let's do it." And so we're going to release that song and another song. We're working on what the second song is going to be. We're going to put that out next year. We got some other things in the works, but I can't talk about it yet, but some other cool things for the new year. And then eventually we'll get back to the drawing board as far as writing a new record. And I think the new record, I want to do it with all the whole band together, because we haven't done that in a long time, you know, and now that we got these guys that we just have, they're so deep in their talent and we all get along so well. Like, we've already done 140 shows together, and we all just are, you know, having a great time being each other's company, you know, and that's amazing. You know what I mean? So there's so much untapped stuff there, and I really want to see what it would be like to get it all in one room and see what we could all come up to together, because Stevie and I basically wrote the whole Warpaint record, you know? So, yeah, so that would be a lot of fun.
Is that something, you know, if you can't speak to it, I'll understand. Was that something that perhaps was missing in older lineups, that collaborative feel? You know, if I may ask, this is the first record without Keith on guitar. Is that something that perhaps didn't happen with him, or was that another case? Because you seem in such a good place now, and obviously you had all the success for people that were or are still your friends, but you know what I mean. Yeah,
you know, it got really weird, and you know, the last 3 years before the split, and it just wasn't a band anymore. It wasn't, we weren't aligned. We weren't all focused on the same things. We didn't all want the same things. And everything happens for a reason, you know, and it's been nothing but a great thing for all of us. I can't speak for Keith or Xavier, but like, I just hope that they are really happy in their lives. That's all that I care about, really, because at the end of the day, that's all you want for people. You know what I mean? I can't harbor resentment or anger towards anybody, you know. At the time, there was a lot of stuff that that rubbed me the wrong way. But since then, I've really worked through it a lot. And now, looking back, it just needed to happen. And now everything's really amazing, you know. So, and with every lineup change in Buckcherry's history, it's always gotten better. So I had that to kind of reflect on when all this was going down. And so I was just optimistic about the whole thing.
Right on. I often make comparisons to some band lineups like sports teams, right? Like I'm always going to root for, I'm a Yankee fan. I'm always going to root for the Yankee jersey. And there are players, you know, that come and go, but you still root for the team. So we're all on team Buckcherry, not to sound too corny. Was there ever maybe a thought for you? Because Buckcherry is obviously such a major brand that you thought maybe instead of rebuilding this thing, that I might go out and do. I mean, you have done solo stuff, but that was, you know, maybe just stick to that path. Did it ever cross your mind to stick to solo as opposed to, you know, Buckcherry reforming and you know, building it like the $6 million man?
No, like Buckcherry's my baby. I started this from nothing. I started it from sitting on the edge of my bed writing songs on a 4-track. You know, that's when I met Keith, and we started writing together at that point. So I'm very passionate about it. I needed to, you know, take breaks from it, and I'm always creating songs. You know, I write all the time. I sing all the time. So that being said, you know, like the Josh Todd and the Conflict record was amazing record. And I got to go back to my heavier roots, and we had so much fun doing that record. And that was kind of like Stevie and I's, you know, we were just really getting used to our songwriting language during that record process, and it just came out really well. And so it set us up for the next phase of Buckcherry, you know. And so I'm always going to be passionate about Buckcherry. It's my baby. All the words you hear and everything came from my soul and came from my personal life and the lives around me, and it's very personal to me. So yeah, as long as I want to do it, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you
know, and that being said, I never wanted to have a, you know, changing of lineups. I never even thought about that. I just wanted to be in one band and make my mark and have a catalog of music, and that's what I wanted. But I didn't know like what, you know, being on the road for 20 years was going to do to people. And it is really hard being on the road for as long as we've been on the road. You have to have you got to have really good mind power, because you can lose your soul out on the road. You eventually, the friends fall by the wayside. You have you have this weird circus life that no one understands. And so your world gets your personal life gets really small, you know? So, and a lot of people can't handle it. And I've seen it, you know, take out band guys and crew guys, and I've seen it just wreck people's lives. And so, you know, that's why I think I can't speak for them, but a lot of the people that have left the band, that not a lot of people have been fired from Buckcherry. There's actually 2, I think. And everybody else left on their own free will. So, you know, and you can't do anything about that. So we just have to keep moving on.
Yeah, no, life is life. You can't predict it. And I can't even imagine what life is on the road like that. I only get my information from Bob Seger songs. Oh, that's what it's kind of like. I just don't know.
It's really challenging. You know, I make a point of always, Stevie too, you know, we always are trying to learn new things when we're on the road. And that's hard to do when you're pretty stationary. So you got to find things to stimulate your mind outside of music. And we do that. And we meditate, and, you know, we're both sober guys. So we work hard on that and all that stuff.
I'm coming up on 4 years without alcohol, so knowing where.
Amazing, that's great.
Thank you, because knowing where the demons that you've fought and the success that you're coming out of it, that you are out of it, and the music obviously continues to be amazing. There's always that joke. Maybe you have to be on drugs to write a good song. Well, obviously you don't have to be, of course.
It's so not true. That is it's completely the opposite.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Right. Let's spin it to a positive then. Is there something on tour that you do look forward to, whether it's, visiting cities and places you haven't gone to, if it's hitting up, a certain fast food place that you don't have locally?
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite things that you actually do look forward to being out on the road?
I really look forward to Waffle House, because they don't have Waffle House on the West Coast. So I really love Waffle House 24/7. And usually they have a jukebox in there, and they have great songs. They have a lot of old school, like R&B and funk, and everybody who works at Waffle House, they're all people that are just, trying to do good in their lives, and I love that, they just, and it's just a big love fest every time I go into a Waffle House. And it's also a place, my oldest daughter, she lives in Tennessee, and it's something that we've always bonded over. Every time I see her, we go to Waffle House and we listen to music, and it's kind of near and dear to me.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of answer I was looking for, something like that. You covered Head Like a Hole on Warpaint. I'm curious.
Yeah.
How did you decide on that song? And I'm assuming you are rooting for them to get into the Rock Hall this year, or do you feel that it's not their time yet? Because, like Doobie Brothers, T-Rex, Pat Benatar. There could be other bands, that could get in before them. Buckcherry, obviously. So,
we qualify. You got to be over 20 years. We definitely qualify. But, yeah, of course I want them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're Trent Reznor, I was always a big fan of the Pretty Hate Machine record. When I heard it, I was like, this sounds like an electronic independent punk rock record. I'm like, this is dope, I just felt like there was a lot of honesty there, and I felt like this guy Trent has stuck to his guns and, made this music that is unique to himself, and it's really cool, and it's reckless, and it's, the lyrics are awesome. I love his voice. And so I just was picking a song that was in my wheelhouse vocally, and words that I could really be passionate about and connect to, and a song on top of it that I thought would translate into being a great rock song. And that's always the challenge. For me, it's like when you hear like a rock band do like a rock song, an old rock song, I'm like, I think it's more challenging to take something kind of out of your genre and make it your own. And we did that with I Love It. We made it say Fuck It on the Fuck EP, and that was like really great for us. We play that every night live, and it's bananas, So it was just kind of an experiment. I came in, we were all set up to record Warpaint. I said, hey, let's jam out the song and see if we can make it sound like us. And Mike Plotnikoff, our producer, was recording us, and we didn't know it, and he did a rough mix of it, and he's like, come here and listen to this, and we're like, what? And he cranked it up, and I was like, damn, this is amazing. It sounds like a Buckcherry song, and so we played it for our people, and everybody loved it, and it just kept hanging around, and it made the record finally.
I couldn't agree more, because it really sounds like a Buckcherry song. If you crawled out from underneath a rock and you weren't familiar with Head Like a Hole, you'd be like, oh, wow, this is a new Buckcherry song. But you're right. It's interesting to hear you take another genre. You can throw the giant blanket of rock, but it's industrial. It's different. It's not the Buckcherry sound, but you completely made it your own, which is extremely hard to do. I'm assuming with everything you do, you embrace that challenge. It doesn't kind of scare you off to think of how would Nine Inch Nails fans receive this? You're just, I guess what goes through your mind?
No. As long as I feel confident performing it and singing it, and then I don't care. I don't care if he likes it or he doesn't like it, because I just know for myself that I'm pleased with it. That's all that matters, because at the end of the day, he's not going to be like hanging out every time we step on stage, and we got to own that stuff when we get on stage,
Sure. You may have noticed by the name of my podcast, I do things a little differently here, because, just like how there are so many rock bands that sound the same, there are so many rock podcasts that do the same thing. So I try to have a 6 degrees of GNR bacon, looking at things through a Guns N' Roses colored glasses. So anybody who has any sort of connection, and you have a lot. One, Jimmy Ashurst, a former band member of Izzy Stradlin, used to be in Buckcherry.
Yeah.
Right. So how was working with Jimmy? Because he's a former guest of the show as well.
Oh, yeah. I love Jimmy. I hope he's doing well. Great bass player, and, we had a good run.
Right on.
Love him. Yeah.
And one of the biggest questions I would get from listeners, so there's too many people for me to credit specifically, but you were kind of, I don't know what you would call it, the genesis, the beginnings, the prologue of what would become Velvet Revolver. I had Steve Gorman, former Black Crow, on the show as well, and he was the drummer, the quote unquote drummer, when it was still called The Project, and they eventually hooked up with Matt Sorum, and the history is told. But I guess if you could tell a little bit of your history, because you performed with Slash, you performed with Duff in Camp Freddy kind of venues. So what was there anything that you guys worked on specifically to potentially be something, or did you guys jam? Well, what is your, I guess, quote unquote Velvet Revolver story?
It's so weird. I've told this story many times, but I'll tell it again. At the time, we were done with the Time Bomb tour, which was the second Buckcherry record, and 3 of the band members had quit. So it was just Keith and I in our rehearsal room just writing songs. And along that time, Slash called up Keith and said, hey, you want to do this Randy Castillo benefit at the Key Club? And we'll do like a couple of Buckcherry songs, a couple of GNR songs, maybe an Aerosmith song. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So it was me, Keith, Matt, Duff, and Slash. And that's how it all started. And so we did this show at the Key Club, and there was everybody was talking about it in LA after we did it. There was this buzz going on. And so Keith and I got back to the rehearsal room a few days later, and I was talking to him. I was like, man, that felt so good. It felt like Buckcherry with really great players. and he goes, yeah. He goes, I totally feel the same way. And I go, it's so nice to be in a band, because we had been bandless for, probably a month at that point, and or maybe longer. And so Slash was thinking the same thing. So we called him and we're like, hey, man, you guys want to do maybe write some songs and see and put together a band? And he was into it. So we became a band for a month, and we were in rehearsal room writing songs, and we even got to the point where we were taking management meetings to find a manager to manage it, and we were trying to come up with band names and all of it. And then all of a sudden, Slash just came in and said he didn't want to do it. He pulled the plug without even letting anybody know. We thought everything was fine. And so that really kind of set me off. I didn't like that. I didn't like, wasting my time spinning my wheels and somebody kind of, leading me on, even though I don't even care who it is. If it was Joe Blow or Slash, it really irritated me, but it is what it is. Right. And then, so Keith and I went our separate ways. And then it was only after that Velvet Revolver eventually became something. It was those 3 guys just kept on rolling, Matt, Duff, and Slash, and then eventually they formed Velvet Revolver. So It was before my involvement.
Gotcha.
After my involvement.
Sorry if you've been asked that a ton of times. I clearly, not enough people, I guess, have heard it, because that's half my questions are curious about that time with the, working with Slash and Duff, because people would like to hear, that collaboration, your voice.
It would have been awesome, but it never got there. And you know what? Those guys went and did their thing, and they had success doing it. And we went and made 15, and so everybody, it was a win-win. So looking back, it's like, everything was meant to be, but at the time, it was frustrating.
Did you ever find out, again, if I may ask, why he pulled the plug at the time?
I don't know. I think he didn't want. I think he had a different singer in mind. Honestly,
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
This question is on.
What can you do? What can you do with that?
Nothing. It is what it is. But who knows if the same amount of effort would have been put into 15, and who knows where all of us would be. So it's. It
just there's nothing. It is what it is, and everything, like I said, it all worked out, and that's all that matters.
Sure. No, I understand. And I won't keep you here forever because I know you. I don't know if you have to finish lunch or record more acoustic versions of Sorry, so I won't keep you here.
No, I'm driving. I'm driving now. I'm going to go get my son.
Oh, cool. Right on. So maybe I'm helping you during traffic, which makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you. This question is from Nathan on Nathan Dodd on Facebook. Does Josh have any good stories about DJ Ashba while Buckcherry and 6 a.m. were touring during Crew Fest, which I actually got to see Crew Fest at Jones Beach. Great show from start to finish in 2008. And he's like, if I remember correctly, DJ joined GNR shortly after. So any mention of joining GNR during that time? No,
DJ and I were always friendly, but never really hung out, didn't know him personally. So, no, I didn't really hang out at that time and with him, but he's a lovely guy, nice to me, But I spoke to DJ not too long ago. I guess he was embarking on like a electronic / guitar project, and I thought it was really cool. And he wanted to have guest singers, and he asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I said yeah, and then I never heard from him again. So I don't know. Hopefully he's doing all right, and he's he's a great musician, and he does his thing.
Right on. It also made me think, I'm sure you've heard the news that Motley Crue is out of retirement. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that. Because for me, I'm just excited to have, a rock and roll band that I love, back. Or does it bother you that a band goes on a farewell tour? I mean, if you can share any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear it.
Wasn't it Nicky who said, we're going to do a farewell tour, and it's really farewell? For real.
Yeah.
Did he say that or no?
Yeah, no, he said it.
No, I don't know. I'm happy that those guys are happy, that's all that matters, they get together. They have so many great songs, and they put on a great show. And I know Tommy fairly well, and, we go back and forth sometimes, and he's a nice guy. And so, I'm happy for them that they can go out there and raise some hell. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Should a band would you ever do a farewell? I mean, you can just take a break without having to announce it. It's like those people that post on Facebook saying that I'm deleting my Facebook. You can just go, right. Take a break.
Do it. Do it. Who cares? I think less is more. I think people talk way too much. You gotta. Not speaking of Nicky or anything. I just, there's no right way to do anything. But for me personally, if I'm taking a break, I just take a break. I don't have to alert the media.
Exactly right. This question is from Ray from the UK. He wants to know why the song "Too Drunk to Fuck," so you can curse, isn't on newer versions of the Black Butterfly record. Yeah. That was our manager's idea. He wanted to replace it with Highway Star and have a re-release of the record. So that's what happened. And then I guess people have a hard time finding Too Drunk. But it's a great song. We play it every night. And I don't know. I haven't really searched for it. Is it hard to find? I guess so, because Ray is somebody who scours the internet to find the song. So I guess he was just he was curious about that. You always want what you can't have, right? That's a good thing. That's how it works. What has been the biggest change of doing shows, do you think, for you? Unless it's just a preparation. from starting out to now, do you feel like that you're such a seasoned veteran that it's almost like it's not? Is it hard work still, or is it kind of like you just know the ropes already of what needs to be done when you go out and put on the show?
Is it hard work? I mean, when you get older, you gotta work harder for sure. I know I have, to keep my body up, and the Buckcherry show vocally is very demanding. So, yeah, I gotta stay on it. I don't sit on the sidelines. So even when I'm home, I don't go more than 2 days without singing. So I got to work that muscle or it goes away for me. But everybody's got their process.
Who was there? I forgot to ask this when you were talking about warming up and all the people that you would listen to growing up. Is there a specific vocalist that perhaps you would kind of, I don't want to say copy, but model yourself after, or inspired you the most more than the others?
Man, that's a really hard question to answer. I don't know. Like the early guys that I really liked, they weren't really vocalists. I liked Ian MacKaye, or I don't know how you want to pronounce it. Some people pronounce it MacKay, some people say MacKaye, but he was the singer of Minor Threat. And Out of Step was like a really amazing record for me. It really helped me. At the time, I was very young, probably like 14 when I got that record, and just was going through a lot in my personal life, and that record spoke to me lyrically. And he was like this front man that just came out there, and he was super charismatic, and he could really command an audience. And like, he was the first guy where I was like, this dude is badass, and I just wanted everything that he had, So he was the first guy that I really looked up to. And then, like I said, I got into all these different artists, and Alison Moyet was really a big one for me. She's the singer of this band called Yaz, and she had like this really soulful voice singing over electronic music, and the songs were really good, and I really loved her voice. And Prince was a huge influence on me because I just thought he was an outlaw, and he just did whatever he wanted. And I loved Stevie Wonder and James Brown, for sure.
Right on. Well, Josh, I mean, this has been a complete honor. Just the fact that I just love your music and have been a fan of Buckcherry since the beginning, and also just someone to kind of see, as somebody who has struggled with addiction and sobriety and depression, to see where you have gone, how you have fought. When we have lost so many in the rock community to those demons. Yes. We got to take our victories and call them out. So you're a victory story, Josh, and I just wish you continued success in life and professionally as well.
I'm a victory story. I'm coming up on 25 years of sobriety, and one day at a time I'll get there, and it's really a daily reprieve, and I appreciate that. And anybody who's struggling with all of it, there is a solution, and I hope you find it. And if you ever want to talk shop and you're at a Buckcherry show and you want to talk about sobriety, I'm always open to it.
That's really cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for fitting me into your schedule, Josh. You have a great day.
My pleasure. Take care.